Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Bar Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for bar owners. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. In the past, you guys have all spent a lot of time listening to me talk, and I appreciate that. But I also think that it's important to bring in other folks with other insights, other areas of expertise, because as much as I might pretend like I know everything, I sure as shit don't. And we need other people's opinions to help you guys out. Plus, I have some friends with some great stories that I think will be very helpful, both stories behind bars, working in bars, owning bars, and as consultants. So today I have with us a really cool guy. His name's Jason Littrell. He was a bartender in New York City for about 12 years. He spent 2 years at Death & Co. Really, really smart guy when it comes to things behind the bar. But he is a genius at marketing, reputation management, and tech, which those of you that have been listening to the podcast and heard my previous episodes on marketing know I am not necessarily the best at marketing. So he's going to help fill some of those gaps for us and also talk to us a little bit about ways we can integrate tech into our workflows with our customers and really build things that maintain our reputation and keep guests coming in the door. So without further ado, here is Jason.
Thank you for having me, Chris. There's one thing I had to point out about one thing about the introduction is that I have also been pretending that you know everything. So hopefully everything works out. If your phone rings, I've been telling people that you know what you're talking about. So,
well, I appreciate that. But Jason, to start out here, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, just so that my listeners can get to know you a little bit?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I mean, I was a shift bartender for 10. I stand corrected, 12 years, as it says in my book. Thank you for reminding me about that. I'm not so great with timelines and histories. In fact, I have an app on my phone that says how long I've had things, how long I've had a job, how pinnacle moments in my life, like when my kid was born, for instance. So it reminds me that my kid is 5.5 now. I'm kidding. I knew that one. But I have, I've been hustling for a long time, born entrepreneur. Now I work for a large distributor in New York and just generally speaking, solving problems that are typically very difficult to solve. The big problem that I think we're all trying to solve is how to mitigate and minimize the staggering failure rate of bars. 80% over 5 years, 67% in the first year, on average, depending on which study you look at. And so these are massive problems. These are big problems, and there are entire communities that feel the impact of that. I mean, nightlife and F&B in New York is $1 billion economic impact. So consider the churn and the value of that. So if we solve 1% of that problem, that could change a lot of people's lives, and that's kind of what gets me out of bed every day.
Well, that's awesome. So with that, we're talking about an 80% failure rate, which, to your point, it depends on which statistics you look at, because I'm waiting for someone to do a really good study that actually nails that down.
I point to Ohio State a lot.
Yeah, the Ohio State study is pretty good, but it's also pretty old, and I'd love to see somebody update that. I gotta twist some professors' arms on that one, I think, at some point. But
I think they kind of look at they look at different KPIs. Like if I were to look at certain KPIs, I would be like, how many licenses are being issued? How many licenses are gone fallow? How many are dead? And then versus how many leases are being signed. Generally speaking, the tax revenue from nightlife specific businesses, like, I don't know. It's like it's a cottage industry in New York, just opening and closing bars. Like a lot of people make money just by opening and closing bars, and the landlord always makes money. It's criminal. So it's something that we're mindful of, but you control the controllables and then you ignore the rest.
Well, yeah, and with the landlord thing, that's why I've always maintained if you can own your own building, you're in the best spot possible. Now, obviously, that's 100%. A lot easier to do in the middle of nowhere in Indiana than it is in New York City. So that's, I mean, there. Oh, go ahead.
There's a delay. Like private equity in New York is really taking over. Just recently, there's this classic bar named called Lucy's, this Polish immigrant in the 80s. She she opened up a bar there. She took over a bar there in the early 80s, and she's herself been tending bar for the last 40 years. And her building was just bought by a private equity firm, like a small private equity firm. I mean, small for whatever private equity is. She was priced out of her own lease, $25,000 a month. And this is like what is now considered prime real estate, but it's just kind of crushing the soul of New York a little bit, making it that much harder for setting new rent standards, which is making it harder for independent operators to come in and do cool things. New York is going to become a strip mall because the only people that can afford that rent are going to be your CVS's, Walgreens, Chase's, or a weed shop, which are everywhere now. They're everywhere now. It must be extremely profitable, but I had no idea, except for the last couple of years, I had no idea what the demand for cannabis was in New York. Apparently it's astonishing, and or the profitability on these head shops is crazy because they're just everywhere. Like, there are literally 4 on my block.
Well, I think it's a combination of all that. And this is one of the interesting things to me when just kind of looking at the bar business as a whole, because, I have people listening to this around the world, and you're talking about New York City, $25,000 a month just to lease a space. Whereas for a lot of the country, you can lease a good space for $5,000 a month. I was looking at a space close to where I am with somebody the other day, and I think the lease was $2,400 a month for 4,000 square feet. So and
that also sounds like plenty enough to collateralize a loan to purchase a building, right?
Oh yeah. No, it's the economics in New York City are different, and really I shouldn't say economics in New York City. The economics in New York and the East Coast, and then California and the West Coast tend to be different than everywhere else. And it's almost like, and this is not at all where I was planning to go, but it's almost like we're seeing this bifurcation in the hospitality business where things like tip credit in a lot of these states is going away. The rents are really high. The regulation is way more difficult. And so I'm starting to notice some things that operators are doing in, say, New York, where you are. We haven't even thought about it doing those things here, because the economics are totally different. A bartender in Indiana can still get paid $2.13 an hour.
Yeah, and probably make a living wage on tips, right? Make a decent living.
I know a lot of guys that get paid $2.13 an hour on their paycheck and make in excess of $100,000 a year.
Yeah, in New York, last time, I haven't worked a shift in a long time, but our hourly was basically only as a provision to cover a zero balance check. It was just enough to pay taxes. And then, in my lifetime behind the bar, we used to get paid in cash, and we used to keep 100% of it. We didn't report it. Now everything is reported. There's no getting around it. And that's fine. I like to pay taxes. I don't like to pay too much taxes. I'm not some like wacky libertarian or something like that, but I like our streets paved. And so I don't mind paying taxes. My kid goes to public school. But being taxed outrageously is something that's deeply offensive to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so marketing. Yeah.
Marketing. That's where we're going, right? That's what we're here to talk about, is marketing. But let's take where we were and combine it with where we're going. So we have this 80% failure rate, give or take, based on that Ohio State study that we were talking about. What do you think from a marketing reputation management side is leading to that? Because obviously the reason bars close is because no one's coming in the door.
Yeah, you can't buy something that you're not aware of, right? So I call it the Amazon effect. Amazon trained us over many years on how to buy things, and it's an extremely effective model. So next time you're on Amazon buying something, and it is the most, I think it's like the 4th or 5th largest search engine in the world. Next time you're on Amazon, look at how they arrange things. Look at how they set things up and how they sell products, because they got, I'm sure they have a large full-time team of people that just track your eyeballs just to see where you look and how you make decisions on things. And so we can play that same game as restaurant owners and operators. And just next time you're on Amazon, look at what you look at, and look at what you track, and look at what you do, how you make decisions on what to buy. For me, I look for the most expensive version of the thing that I want. and then I look at the reviews, and then I look at the number of reviews. Now, in order of those things, and that's just my preference. So like I'm looking for the best of the thing that I want. Now that's typically reserved for like e-commerce and product stuff, like things. As far as services are concerned, I typically go to Google Maps. And I say they've been cultivating and training us how to do the near me searches for a long time. Like, so if you type in restaurant, it'll automatically fill in the near me part, and it'll show you the places that it wants to show you. It won't show you everything. And so this is where search engine optimization comes in. SEO is a major factor in how we are presented with products and services to buy. And so if you're not playing that game, you are largely invisible. The mindset of being like, I'm bought into a good location and I get tons of foot traffic is almost completely irrelevant. So I'd rather pay less rent and pay more on focusing on search engine optimization so that people could find me than I would on doing no SEO, no digital marketing, and being in time fucking square, right? Because if people that even if they can see you, even if they're looking at you, they're probably going, like statistically, they're more likely to look at their phone, do some research, and find out if they like you or not. And so that is your first impression, right? So the first impression for most bars and restaurants when I grew up, was they would see the sign and they would be like, is it welcoming should I walk through this door? Now it's like, how do they rank among the places next to it? How many star ratings, how many reviews do they have? And then they make a decision whether or not they're willing to give you a chance. So if you are not playing the game on their 4-inch screen, you're not in the same league. And so this is why, and you can pay for this to get it fast, or you can play the long game and do it smart and do it consistently over a long period of time. You don't necessarily have to do blog posts. You don't necessarily have to be on Instagram. Instagram's a whole nother thing. I don't know why people waste so much time on Instagram. Okay. If you want to get into that, let's get into that. But sticking to the theme of SEO, like you want to be on, it's called the 3-pack on Google search. And so if you're not in the 3-pack, as in being one of the 3 most relevant places, based on the search that somebody is looking for, then you are likely not going to be discovered at all. So you want to be in that 3-pack. So this is when, when you get into putting stuff like, I like to put the word margarita on every Google My Business profile that I used to manage, right? Because people know what a margarita is. And so if you're not establishing a connection between the thing that you have and the thing that they already want on a menu, then you are less likely to be found. So you may have this like really crazy agave blend or like this crazy thing. If it's got agave in it and it's shaken, compare it to a margarita because they already want a margarita. They don't know what your thing is. So you have to make this connection for them like they're 6 years old. Like, hi, I wanted to help you find something that you really like. Can you come here, buddy? Okay, cool. Hey, check this out. We have this mezcal and tequila cocktail. It's got some fruit juice, it's got some lime juice and lemon juice, and it's got some stuff in it. And it's just like a margarita. That is the connection that you make for people. And that is how you make it for them, because they're going to make a decision in about 15, 20 seconds. And if you're not there answering their question that they're having in their mind at the time, then they will pick somebody who will. And it's cutthroat and it's irritating, but that is the way it is. That is the way decisions are made.
So a few things that are interesting to me in what you just said. One is, and because I wholeheartedly am on the same page as you, and I didn't know that until we got into this conversation, but it's nice to know. Because to me, when you look at what a bar needs to do to be successful, you always have to have about 20% of your business be new business, right? And to your point, a lot of bars tend to focus on Facebook and Instagram as marketing. But that 20% new business is not the people looking at your Facebook and your Instagram. That's the 80% of the repeat business you have to generate, which means new business, at least the way I've always looked at it from a marketing perspective, comes down to SEO and relationship management, essentially on review sites, which we all freaking hate, but that's a whole different story too.
You can automate it. Part of it. Yeah.
Right.
People use Yext for that. YEXT, yeah. You're talking about citations, like backlinks and citations, like people that link to you, like the review sites, rather than going on TripAdvisor, rather than going on Google My Business, rather than going on, Reddit and all these other sites that not Reddit, but all these other sites that do reviews and are aggregators for local businesses. You can use a service like Yext. And update one thing that will update all of them at the same time. And every time you update it, like whether you're changing your business hours or your menu, or if you have some sort of an offer, you can change it from one place via software like Yext, YEXT. And then that will change 150 different citations around the internet, and they all point to you. So that's not the same thing as having 150 blogs write about you, but it's kind of tantamount. It's pretty close. It's good for SEO, and also you're delivering the right information and updating it across wherever they're looking, which is also important. Like, how many times have you showed up to a bar and been like, "Your guys are supposed to be open. It says on here that you're open right now." You know how irritating that is for people, especially if they had to get into a car.
Well, and the
imagine
thing
having to
is,
get into a car, find parking, and then go to a place and it's closed and the information is wrong. You will never see those people again. You will never get a service recovery opportunity.
Well, that's the whole point, right? Because if somebody comes to your bar when they think it should be open because Google said it was, and it's not, they're never coming back, right? You have just lost that customer forever. And if it's on Google, especially now like where you are, thousands of people may be looking at that every day. So you might turn off thousands of customers every single day without even trying.
Much to the delight of the bar right next door, because we are lazy.
Absolutely.
We are lazy. Like, we're not going to get back in our car. We're not going to get on the train and go back to our neighborhood and be like, okay, well, we got to try again. You're like, nope, I've expended this amount of effort. I'm going to find the path of least resistance, and I will go to the place that is right. And here it is again, near me. And you're probably going to use a Google product to find out.
Yeah, yeah. And that was a really good tip on the next thing, because I did a podcast episode not that long ago. I want to say last month or the month before, where I told everyone they had to log into everything and update it manually. So you've already saved the listeners like 100 hours of work that I gave.
Well, it is a service that you're going to pay about $100 a month for. But going back to if we're talking about bar owners here, then there are never enough. There's never enough time in the day, and the only way and the best way to expend capital is to preserve time. And so if you can, this is why it just astonishes me why more people don't hire bar consultants and marketing specialists and people who specialize in specific things, is because if you're recovering your time and making people accountable for the cash expenditure, then you are leveraging your capital to grow a business versus doing a million things poorly. They say that the hunter that chases two rabbits catches neither. And so if you think that you can do your own marketing, and I don't care if you're doing $500,000 a year or if you're doing $20 million a year, you have to outsource the things that you suck at. And you have to outsource things to people that you're even okay at. Because there's a lot of things that bar owners do they should not be doing. They shouldn't be doing, I think marketing is probably one of those things that they should have their hand in, because their voice and tonality and cadence should be front and center. But it'd be like going back behind the bar and bartending. It's like, you don't do that. You have people for that. You have experts that do just that. And it's just astonishing to me. Like it's a very clear thing. Like our mentor, Sean, told us this book, The Goal, and I read that book, and it's just about basically efficient. It's about efficient production in a factory, and every bar and restaurant is a factory. It's kind of unique to a lot of businesses in that it does its own production, does its own sales, its own marketing, its own distribution, and to think that you might be an expert in all those things at the same time is ridiculous. So it is. You're spending your money on something. You're probably spending your money on the wrong things. And if it were my money, and I have been a bar owner, it sucked. I cannot recommend it. But one of the biggest lessons that I learned is that I should have been reinvesting the little money that I made into people who really knew what they were doing, so that they could do it well.
Mm-hmm. Now, to touch on something you mentioned during that, you said you need to make sure that your tonality, your color, like everything is consistent across your marketing. And let's talk about that for a little bit, because I feel like for a lot of bars, because they don't necessarily have the time to do everything, they have, a server that is really good at TikTok, and they have a bartender that has a following on Instagram. And so these pieces kind of go out to folks that really know what they're doing on platforms, because pretty much every bar has someone working there nowadays that has some social media presence. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when they divide that up, it loses potentially some of the brand voice, some of the consistency to it. And I'm really big on what I call a cohesive concept, that everything from your website to your online reputation management to when they pull into your parking lot to your front door, everything about that experience from when they first touch you online until they're leaving in their car from your parking lot has to feel like it's one cohesive experience. Because if it doesn't, people get confused. Mm-hmm. So how can you make sure, especially if you have different people doing marketing, that you are maintaining that consistent brand voice online and not confusing people by seeming like you're coming from different directions and not speaking as one person?
Okay. There's a lot to that. And what I would say, first of all, is that you should not be doing your own marketing. You should be empowering other people to do your marketing for you. And your customers, it's a concept called social proof from a field of science called behavioral economics, but it's called social proof. And what other people say about you is more important than what you say about you. And so to get people to listen to you, they're going to need to trust you on some level. So they have to know, like, and trust you to buy anything from you. But if they're going to listen to anything that you say, whether it's an email, an Instagram message, or whatever, they have to have some sort of an understanding that they have a reason to give you their attention for however long that is. And so that is why reviews and ratings are so important, is because that is the first indication of, like, do I trust these people? And they're literally co-opting somebody else's decision. They're co-opting somebody else's opinion to decide whether or not they're interested in the possibility of entertaining, of spending any of their time at your place. Is that really loud?
I mean, it was for a second.
Can you hear banging?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, I'll push through.
I'll edit it out.
If you want to. I wouldn't. Yeah, that's how it goes. Right. So they're not going to pay attention to you unless they've already, like, established some sort of level of trust. And the very best version of that is a friend saying, "Hey, meet me at this place." The second best version of it is like, "Hey, you should check out this place. I had a great XYZ there." That's the second best. Third best is like, "I'm here. Where should I go drink?" And then that's when SEO kicks in, all that stuff. So just to preface all of this, the entire sales and marketing conversation should be encapsulated in a box, or encapsulated into a concept that is like, outside the door, before they've walked into your bar or restaurant, it is a marketing conversation. Once they've walked in the door, it is a sales conversation. And so everything that happens inside the door is sales. And so, like, that's why I kind of developed this Fast Friends framework, which guides people through the sales process. It's all commonly understood as steps of service, but it really is geared towards making people comfortable, building rapport extremely quickly, providing epic level of service that people will remember, and then guiding them into leaving some sort of a social proof element, like as in a rating and review. And you're not always going to get that the first time, but statistically, about 3/4 of people will give you a review if you ask them to, and if you make it very easy for them. Like, getting people, like, reviews are pretty much the you're talking about your 20% of people have to bring a new friend. A new business coming in is the lifeblood. If you're down to 10%, you'll still survive. Your growth rate is just going to slow. If you're at 0%, then you are dying. You are dying.
Absolutely.
If people don't have a positive impression, we talked about the Net Promoter Score before. The Net Promoter Score is the kind of tried and true survey. It's a quick survey. It takes less than a minute to do. And everybody who owns any kind of business should probably be doing some version of the Net Promoter Score survey. But just to run through it really quickly, it's a scale of 1 to 10. How likely and it's one question. How likely would you be to recommend this place to a friend or a family member? That is the question. And it comes in different versions. Sometimes it's 1 to 5. But breaking down the results of the Net Promoter Score are 9s and 10s are your promoters. They're people that are rabid fans. They love you to pieces and they want to tell their friends about you. 1s to 5 or 1s to 6s that's service recovery. That they don't like you. Like, it's not that 1 means that they actively hate you, but 6 means that that you are not even important enough to talk about. Mm-hmm. 7s and 8s are neutral and they can be nudged one way or the other, right? So 7s or 8s are like they can be nudged into very happy customers they're willing to wave their arms in the street, put up a post about you, leave a review. They can be nudged in that direction. But otherwise, if they're not nudged anywhere, they will probably fall into the 1 to 6 category. They'll probably fade away into people that are potentially actively against you. So getting that survey could be done verbally. My preference is that it's done digitally because if that means that you're collecting some sort of information about your guest, and it can be automated. You can automate the ever-loving SHIT out of that, which I really like, which means you can do it at scale. But the easiest way to do it is to just ask. Be like, hey, listen, like, would you ever come back here? You could do that. But again, like being a nerd, my process would be something a little bit more sophisticated than that. And what I like to do, and hear me out here, is I like to issue restaurants a new phone number that can be tracked with your CRM, right? And so every time the phone rings, you don't answer the phone and they automatically get a text message back, right? So they get a text message back like, hey, sorry we missed your call. What can we do for you? That's 24/7, 365, doesn't have hangovers, doesn't go to weddings, doesn't take personal time off, right? So 24/7, 365. The phone rings, it doesn't even ring in the bar. And it automatically sends them a text back saying, what can I help you with? And it's typically one of like 3 or 4 questions. When I was a marketing director, it was like the same 5 questions. Like, what do you have that's gluten-free? How do I get there? I forgot something there. And then like, how do I book an event? And like, there's like one other question. I forget what it was. But the vast majority of it was, how do I book a reservation? Right. And so that is a buying question. That means that they are interested in buying. And because they've called you, it is a very high level of intent, right? Mm-hmm. So they've looked at your thing on Google Maps. They're like, okay, cool. They have selected you and given you a chunk of their attention and said, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call these people and I'm going to try to book something or complain or whatever else it is. But in any case, that person has probably already had a meaningful interaction with your bar. And so it is reasonable to assume that because they have called you, that they have had some sort of an experience. And so if they've had some sort of an experience with a bar, you can text them in 24 hours, be like, hey, listen, this is the owner of the bar, or this is the bar manager, or this is a robot. And we wanted to know how your interaction with the bar was, because we know that they called them. They did have some interaction. We texted them. Mm-hmm. They called us. We texted them. That was an interaction. So maybe they got what they want. Maybe they didn't. We want to know either way. So, hey, can you just let us know by replying 1 through 5, how did it go? Would you come back? And that is a Net Promoter Score survey. And so you can take that information, receive the value that they sent you, and then automate that based on that level of experience. Now, the tricky, nasty thing that you don't usually talk about is if it's a 4 or 5, or if it's a 5, then you send them immediately a Google review, a link to leave your Google review. Right. So every phone call that you get coming in is going to get some sort of request for a review. And if it's a service recovery thing, then you can set it up to automatically call them back. Like, hey, listen, I saw that you didn't have a good experience here. We want to fix it. We want to make it right. And you call them immediately. And that's a service recovery mechanism. Otherwise, it's a positive experience. Like, hey, would you mind telling other people too? Like, would you mind leaving us a Google review? And then, it's probably not a good idea to incentivize people, but people have incentivized people for leaving reviews. And it is against the terms of service to incentivize people to leave a review, especially a positive review, because it makes the results contrived. But yeah, so that's kind of where my nerd brain marketing thing comes in. So we're automatically picking up every phone call. We're automatically texting everybody back, and we're asking everybody who's ever interacted with the bar for a review. And then in the process, somewhere they've opted into marketing. And so you can send them offers, you can send text messages. And of course, we make it very easy. Or when I was doing this, we made it very easy for people to opt out. So it's not creepy. It's not for every bar, but there's a way to do this. Is passive. I call it ghost marketing, where you're like doing passive organic marketing based on inbound intent. Like you're not like reaching out to people, like you're not cold calling people. They're already reaching out to you. They've already shown some level of interest, and we are just simply trying to create some momentum from that. So what do you think about that?
To your point, somebody that's calling you has high intent, right? They want something from you. You don't call somebody for no reason. So you do establish that intent. Now, to be real honest with you, I had never even thought of setting up a system like that. And some of that is that, I live in a small town. I call my water company and Judy picks up the phone because she's the only person that works the front desk. I live in a Judy. Total, it's a different world compared to New York City for sure. But I can see where,
there's you can set parameters around it. So you can have the phone ring like for 20 before it happens, like that kind of stuff. The real crazy shit that's happened in the last year is that you can connect that to GPT-4, have it read your entire website, have it read every review that's ever written about you. And then that way it can answer any question that anybody possibly has about your business. And then begin a sales conversation about hey, listen, would you like to book a review? Or would you like to book a seat? Would you like to, were you looking at the PR? What were you looking at that we can help you with? Did you want to buy a gift certificate? And then you can have an endless conversation that goes back and forth forever until somebody buys or dies or opts out.
Well, and the thing too about that is how often, and the answer is of course all the time, because labor, we have to maintain so tight on labor, right? Just to be able to make money in this business. You don't have extra people standing around that can just answer the phone. If you're a busy bar, your phone might be ringing 5-10 times an hour during your rush time. And the idea that bartender steps away from the bar during peak to answer the phone, you're in some trouble, right? You now have server tickets you're behind. You have guests that aren't getting the service they need.
Yep, you're in some kind of trouble. Yep.
Yeah. So
and it's like leveraging this technology is not necessarily about cost savings as it is about providing better service. This is how people like to be communicated with by, by the way. I mean, people enjoy immediate responses. They enjoy the text messages. They far prefer text messages over calls. And you're right. I mean, we were talking about the value per second of peak hours for a bartender to make drinks, and then how rare those hours are. So if you're taking somebody off the floor to field these conversations, then somebody's going to get pissed. It's either going to be a customer that you're sitting in front of, or it's going to be a customer at the other end of the line. So this is a solve for both of those things, and the technology exists. It's there. There's tons of services. I'm sure if anybody listening to this has probably spent 6 minutes looking through their Instagram feed, they're probably getting served ads for this kind of stuff. My advice: take it. Because what is your time worth? What is the cost of you not being out there training your staff, improving the profitability of your peak hours? If you talk to Chris or me, then we can probably tell you, if we look at your P&L, exactly how much it'll cost you.
Yeah. Now, how hard is something like this to set up?
The software that I used in the past is called High Level, and so you can either sign up for your own account, or there are numerous other people that will that have built out their own proprietary automations and systems on top of it. My system was completely nasty. I spent years on it, building out the conversation flows so that every plausible question could be answered, so it didn't feel like it was salesy, didn't feel like it was pushy. It was the cadence was genuine, and also building offers that made sense for clients. I was a marketing director for a small vegan restaurant group in New York for a while, and so I had a lot of time to build this stuff out and kind of conceptualize. And I picked up the phone a lot, answered the calls, finding out what people were asking. And I built a whole system around that. But a lot of people serve this space. A lot of people have really interesting things. But if they can't explain it to you like you're 6 years old, then they don't know what they're doing.
So what you're really
in short.
saying without saying it is when people listen to this and they're like, hey, that's cool, they just need to call you.
I would certainly delight in pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah. And by the way, we'll make sure when this gets posted that down in the show notes, we'll have all your information, plenty of ways for people to contact you. That way they can get a hold of you and talk through some of this stuff with you if they want, because this is the kind of stuff that my brain just goes, well, you just answer the phone, man. But your solution is so much more elegant. It's so much better than just answer the phone, because at if you're a bar that opens at 4 because you're just doing happy hour and late night, now you have a way that person that calls at 2 in the afternoon gets all the answers they need.
So there's like this push pull with operators. Like for a long time, I was a great craftsman. I knew how to make a drink. I knew how to make drinks at scale. I knew how to train people how to make drinks, and I was a good bar consultant. As it applied to making a creative cocktail menu and deploying a creative cocktail menu for a launch and for seasonal launches and stuff. Then it came into the conversation about like, okay, well, so that's the proactive approach. Now, how do we merge that in with a reactive approach with how people actually make decisions? Because I've worked at, I was just thinking about this today, actually, like the first and last bars I've worked at are the only bars that are still in business, right? So the first bar I ever worked at was a place called Hooley's in El Cajon. It's outside of San Diego. And they just celebrated their 25th anniversary. The last bar I worked at was Death and Company. And that was, I can't even remember. I'm not great with dates and years and stuff like that, but I want to say it was like, I don't know, the early teens that I left that bar. That's when I started doing bar consulting, event production, and like kind of wackier stuff. And so like, I was just like, okay, how can I be a craftsperson, but also meet a demand? And how can I enter the conversation that's already happening in my customer's mind? Because I'm tired of being extremely good at what I do to an empty room, And I'm tired of taking money out of bars that I know are statistically going to fail. Like as in likely 67% chance that this bar is going to fail in the first year. And that happened again and again. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. They used to say that that one of the biggest reasons for bars going out of business was undercapitalization. But in my experience, that's not the case. It's just either just poor management, just a very abstract view of what the bar is, what it does, who it serves. These are more, in my mind, more pressing issues than undercapitalization. Because typically, if you ask your friends, family, and fools, as they say, for money to open up a bar, then you have some sort of a horizon, like whether it's a 3-month horizon, which is not at all enough time, or a 6-month horizon for cash flow, or preferably more like a 12-month horizon for cash flow. Then that's how long it takes. That's how long you can operate without making any money, by the way. That's what I'm talking about with horizon. But if you don't know what it is that you're making and who you're making it for, and creating a straight line between where you are now and where your customer wants to be, then that is the biggest threat to your business, is not knowing what it is that you do, who you do it for. And then that impacts every single decision in getting from where you are now to where you want to be. So anyways, I will step off my soapbox on that
one. No, you're good, because I completely agree with you. I think undercapitalization is a huge issue. If you do things right and you're undercapitalized, you will fail. But if you don't do things right, it doesn't matter. You can have millions of dollars sitting there. It doesn't make you profitable. It just makes you go bankrupt slower. Right? Yeah. But to me, one of the biggest issues when people get in the bar business, and it's unfortunately because we have a lot of folks that get into this industry that don't have big hospitality backgrounds. But one of the big issues I always see is people want to make a bar that's what they want. And one of the things that sometimes people get mad at me about, because I say this a lot, is no one gives a shit what you like. No one freaking cares at all. Right? And so if it's about what you like, well, if what you like is the same as what the market likes, great. But if you're weird, because we're all freaking weird, and you like something that doesn't make sense to other people, no one gives a shit, and you will fail because you're not meeting the market where they are.
Mm-hmm. So crazy. So great. It seems simple saying it out loud.
It does.
But these are questions that people don't really discuss in their pitch meetings. So they say
Right.
like I worked at a fancy bar and people assumed that I knew what I was talking about. I didn't. I still kind of don't. There was a certain time when people were offering me money to open up a bar, and thankfully we never really came to terms because I didn't know what I was doing, and the expectation of me doing what they wanted me to do, which was to be the face, which is to be the creative and basically to pack the bar every night. That was my responsibility. Their responsibility was to bring money and to bring some level of expertise. But that model somehow still sees the light of day, because I see a lot of places that are like, this drink is really epic. Now let's try the same one in 10 minutes. Now let's see if that turns out okay. Let's try it again in a week. Let's see if that turns out okay. Okay, cool. Like, it's just bizarre. It's a bizarre business. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that you and I have talked about before. As you mentioned, Sean Finder earlier, who's kind of our mentor and our coach. One of the things that you see a lot of people not realize is that because of how expansive this business is, because of how much is going on, there's no way that you can actually do it all, right? You can't hit everything. And knowing your weak points, knowing where to delegate, like you mentioned earlier, and knowing then like, hey, I can find this guy that can help me with this piece. I can find this guy that can help me with this piece. Right? As much as I've talked about marketing on the podcast, I'm sure every single person that's listened to me talk about marketing, if they needed to have someone help them with SEO and inbound traffic, would call you, not me. Because you're the better pick for that, right? Now, there are, I'm sure, things where I would be the better pick. Probably if we get into numbers and bookkeeping and all that, that I know is not.
I was going to say, don't. I was like, don't point your spreadsheet at me.
Well, and I have a spreadsheet for everything, but that's the point, right? We all have strengths and weaknesses. And to make a bar successful, especially when you get into high volume, big cities, and you have some expendable capital there to grow and to make your bar bigger and better, getting the right people to fill the right spots and to help you out is one of the best things you can do to make your business move forward.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of consultants in the business. It is, but most industries have a lot better books written, materials out there, consultants out there, better TED Talks. I mean, I've listened to TED Talks on everything from puppies to freaking space robots, and never have I heard one that deals with bars.
Well, I've got a theory on that. I think that we have a difficult time isolating what the important problems are. Mm-hmm. And so, having been a bar manager, having been a bar owner, I was sacrificing the important for the urgent a lot. And that's kind of what led me to building out a decision matrix. It's called the Eisenhower decision matrix. This is literally how Dwight Eisenhower, our former president of the United States, made decisions. And it was into 4 categories. Is this not important, not urgent? It basically went into the dumpster. Is this important, not urgent? Then it goes into this list of things to do. Is it important and urgent? Then it's okay, drop everything, and this is what we deal with right now. And then the important, not urgent stuff was 100% delegated. And so if you don't have a systematic approach to where you are now, where you want to be, and how you make decisions and how you deploy those decisions and distribute those decisions, then you're kind of lost. And this is what the manifestation of that level of understanding how the business works comes in the form of being exhausted at the end of the day, exhausted at the end of a very long day, and not having felt like you've accomplished anything. Mm-hmm. And so I literally give a lot of clients, if they want, I'll give you the link to it so people can make it for themselves. But I put a template together that has a bunch of videos that says, this is how you use this. And if you want to, you can copy to a free Trello template for your own business. And you literally create a card for, this needs to happen. And now, is it important and urgent? Is it not important? Is it urgent? And then you can like assign people to do things. Like you can assign your managers to do things. You can say, you can put a deadline on it. You can put a little checklist on each card, and each card it's called Kanban. And so the idea is that they move from left to right into eventually getting done. And that's when you look at a glance from the outside looking in, from the bird's eye view of like, what are we doing here? And then you could be like, in the context of everything that's happening here, is it important that I take this meeting with a supplier? Probably not, because you have office hours, because you're organized. But it's like, you know how it is, like a million things that pop up all the time. And this is only compounded when you have, when you're operating multiple units at the same time. But even if you have one simple system with one bar with 500 square feet, 54 seats, 50 seats, whatever it is, it's important to have a decision matrix of like, how do you make decisions? How do you prioritize things? And that way you're not sacrificing the important things that move your business forward. And, ultimately you have to build profitability into every action that you take. And that way you're not, if you're kind of, rationalizing and doing things that just don't matter, then you're not necessarily doing your business any favors. And neither are your managers, because they don't have a clear direction on where they should be, which direction they should be rowing. But, having an integrated Kanban system that's like, okay, check your board. This is what I want you to do today. And then before that, with hiring, it's like, this is your job description. These are the things that I want you to do. This is what the bartenders do. This is what the managers do. This is what I do. This is what the GM does. And I'm going to dish things off to you. If you have a difficult time understanding what I'm asking for, then ask me and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But otherwise, I just expect it to get done. I'm not going to micromanage how it happens. And a lot of times people have a very difficult time letting it go, that control over the minutia. But that is the flavor. That is the sazon. That is the beautiful part of bars is people working together the way they like to do things, as long as it gets accomplished in a reasonably articulated way. And I think that's kind of where the magic comes from, like letting people do what they do within reasonable parameters.
Well, it is. And one of the things I always notice is that there are a lot of bar owners out there that say, well, no one will do this as well as I will. And of course they won't, right? I own the bar. Right. It's my money. It's my investment. I have to get out there. I'm worried about this all day long. It's my entire life. You're an employee. Of course you won't care as much as me. Of course you're not going to put in the same time as me as the owner. But if that employee can do it 70, 75, 80% as well as you can, there's no reason not to delegate it. Right? It's you can't expect perfection out of your employees, but you still have to delegate things to them.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing, is like, because we handle the production, the distribution, the marketing, the sales of the product that we make, it typically comes up to very few people to handle every element of those businesses. Like, if you're making an organizational chart of your business, like if you look at a Fortune 500 company, there's like the CEO, the COO, VPs, managers, and then employees on the bottom. Like all those boxes still have to be full. But the thing is, with a small bar and restaurant, is there's usually that one person's name is usually on a lot of those boxes, because the work still has to get done. And that's why I like this decision matrix, is because you can decide what is actually relevant and important for the goal of the business. And the book that I'm referencing is called The Goal by Elihu Enrat. It was recommended by Sean. And I was just like, this is dynamite. This makes so much sense. And it's about the theory of constraints. So it's like, if your goal is to be profitable, e.g. to serve as many people in a profitable way to make them happy and want to come back, then you can find out the steps that go along the way. And if there's a blockage in one of those steps, then that becomes the priority, because downstream it'll alleviate a burden. And so like, if you're like, okay, well, we need to make money to stay in business, then profitability has to be built into every decision that you make. And that's not like, and this is not, I mean, I don't want to get too wild with this, but we have this scarcity mentality in service and hospitality where we're just like, we have to do everything. We have to do it right now. We cannot leave until it's done. But what we rarely stop to think about is what we're doing important. And does it matter for if we solve this one problem, does it solve other problems too? So I don't know. There's a lot of heady theoretical stuff going on in my head right now. But if you don't have this clarity in what the purpose of your place is, then you're going to have muddled indecision and you're going to be making poor decisions all the way downstream. Every other, like if it's not in service of this one goal or one mission of the bar or restaurant, then it probably doesn't matter. It's probably not as important as you think it is right now. And every other decision, if you don't have that clarity, it's probably not going to be as good.
Absolutely. And you know what? We've been recording now for a while, so we got to get this wrapped up a little bit. But this has been a really good conversation, and that's a really good note to kind of wrap us up on. But before we do you have anything else you want to say? Anything that you want to put out there for the listeners?
No, just everything that I've ever learned, I've been putting onto barteams.com and kind of loading in there to try to help the community. And I also have a Facebook group called Who's My Rep. So if you've ever looked for a rep that you're like, oh, who's my supplier rep? And it's mostly in the US, a little bit of UK, but yeah, if you're looking for a wine, spirits, or beer rep, then join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Who's My Rep. It's not a clever title. But Bar Teams and Who's My Rep are my big shout outs right now. Other than that, I work for a big company and I can't really talk about a whole lot.
So we will put the link for Bar Teams in the show description. We'll put the link for Who's My Rep in the show description. If you are in the Bar Business Nation Facebook group that I have, I'm going to put a bunch of stuff about Bar Teams in there because I'm working with Jason on making sure that we're just loading that up with content and doing some really cool panel conversations and different things moving forward to make sure that there's more resources available to bar owners. Because like we said a minute ago, there's not as many resources for our industry as others, and there needs to be.
Yeah, I'm also in Bar Business Nation, the group. So feel free to @me if you have any specific questions. I'm happy to respond to you there. I'm on Facebook more than I care to admit.
I think we all are, but we don't have to get into that.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't either. But seriously, guys, check out barteams.com. Check out Who's My Rep. Check out Bar Business Nation. All that will be in the show notes. As always, we'll also include a link for a strategy session with me if you want to schedule one. We'll include a link to get a hold of Jason as well so that you have all that contact information. And with that, Jason, do you have anything else you want to say before we
Thank you for having me on the show. Am I your first guest?
You are the first guest ever. I have done 52. I've done 52 episodes. This is episode 53, and you will be the person that gives them a break from listening to me talk.
Kaboom! Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. This has been fantastic, and we will have to do more of this in the future because obviously I think you and I could do this for about 3-4 hours and still have shit to talk about. Right. Well, we may have something that we can announce pretty soon. If we seem to be good at talking to each other, so let's figure that out. Well, and let's just say for those of you listening, because we're not going to give it away, but check out Bar Teams. Still listening. Because you will see it on Bar Teams. But on that note, I'm going to let you all go for the week. Have a great week, and we'll talk again later.